Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the World Report. I am Arjun Samar Mahindra and let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. First up, the line of control in border areas remained largely peaceful, the Indian Army said on Monday. Now, this is less than 2 days after the two nuclear-armed neighbours agreed to a truce. The night remained largely peaceful across J&K and other areas along the international border. No incidents have been reported, marking the first calm night in recent days. Now, the army sources told this to NDTV. Meanwhile, India and Pakistan have reached an understanding to stop all firings and military actions on land, air and the sea, with immediate effect from 5 p.m. on Saturday. However, Pakistan violated the ceasefire agreement within hours. A day after this, India declared that Pakistan had been, in fact, put on notice. India last week under Operation Sindoor carried out 24 missile strikes in 25 minutes across 9 Pakistan locations and locations also in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, killing 100 terrorists. The strikes were to avenge the April 22 Pahalgam terror attacks in which 26 innocent lives, mostly tourists, were cut short. Meanwhile, here's my colleague Shiv Arur joining us with the latest from near the LOC in Uri. Shiv, a couple of questions first. What's the latest you're picking up from near the LOC? It's apparently been the first night of calm after the ceasefire was declared. And also I'd like to, to have you shed some light on the upcoming presser at 2:30 p.m. and the DGMO level talks which will happen later in the evening today.
Arjun, thanks for having me. Yes, I am at the line of control in Uri. This is a village called Tilawadi, which happens to be the last village before the line of control, the final post, and POK is what you actually see behind me. It's the first night of calm and the first day of calm in the last 5 days is a little unreal because in the last few occasions that we visited the forward areas, it has been punctuated by the sound of artillery fire and ceasefire violations. All is quiet right now, even though people haven't really returned to these forward villages because there is the risk of unexploded ordnance and shells that still needs to be taken care of by bomb disposal authorities, and the villages haven't been sanitized just yet. So we're waiting on that. So we've come here just to do a spot check of that. As far as the briefing is concerned, it'll be the second big briefing by the armed forces in the last 2 days. Yesterday they had a huge briefing. It was magnificent. Lots of information came out about the nature of the attacks, the strikes, and what the military objectives were that had been very successfully achieved. That stands to happen in just a few minutes from now at about 2:30 p.m. That hasn't been postponed. But Arjun, what has been postponed, interestingly, is the Directorate General of Military Operations talks. The DGMO talks that were supposed to happen at 12. We were told that they had happened. Then there was a backtrack on that, and now we've been told it's taking place at some point in the evening, maybe around 5 p.m. So I'm a little curious, obviously, because the way things were structured, the DGMO level talks would have happened and then the briefing would have happened. Now it's going to be the other way around. So I'm wondering what specific information as far as that crucial element is going to be shared at this briefing. But we can look forward to more information regarding the airstrikes, regarding the current posture, which remains on a high operational alert, a war alert as far as India is concerned. The Prime Minister has just met the chiefs and the National Security Advisor in Delhi as well. So India remains completely ready for any escalation, even though there is an understanding of a ceasefire right now.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest, Shiv. And of course, we'll be following all of the pressers and the developments with the Hawkeye here at NDTV World and NDTV 24/7. Moving on for now, the US and China have agreed to lower tariffs for the next 90 days. I mean, a major de-escalation in the tariff war that has been threatening to cut off trade between the world's two largest economies. Now, as a part of an agreement hammered out in Geneva, the US will lower tariffs on Chinese goods to 30% from the existing 145%. In response, China will reduce duties on US imports to 10% from 125%. Now, viewers, Washington and Beijing have been locked in an escalating trade war since early April nonetheless, when Trump lifted tariffs on Chinese imports and China imposed retaliatory duties. The punitive duties have damaged trade between the countries, with Bezant acknowledging last month that the situation was unsustainable. Here's a report.
I'm happy to report that we made substantial progress between the United States and China in these very important trade talks.
After months of rising tensions, signs of thaw are emerging between the world's two largest economies, the United States and China. The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said substantial progress has been made in de-escalating the trade war with China. The announcement followed a weekend of high-level closed-door talks in Geneva with China's Vice Premier, the first such meeting since US President Donald Trump slapped sweeping tariffs on Chinese goods earlier this year. President Trump was quick to hail the talks as a total reset in relations. In a social media post, he described the negotiations as very good and conducted in a friendly but constructive manner. For President Trump, the ultimate goal is opening up China to American business. The trade war has taken a heavy toll on both sides. Washington imposed tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese imports. Beijing hit back with 125% tariffs on American goods. Yet, despite the tit-for-tat escalation, the US maintained it won't lower tariffs unilaterally. China, in turn, insisted concessions from Washington.
Just remember why we're here in the first place. The United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
The economic impact has been tangible. Chinese exporters like Sorbo Technology are feeling the strain, with products piling up unsold. Meanwhile, the United States economy shrank by 0.3% in the first quarter as businesses rushed to import goods before higher tariffs kicked in. The US-China dispute is a part of a broader trade offensive by the Trump administration. Just last month, President Trump unveiled a universal baseline tariff on all imports, branding the move as Liberation Day. 60 trading partners, including China and the European Union, faced even steeper penalties for what the White House called years of unfair trade. Steel, aluminium, and auto sector tariffs have been hit particularly hard. Yet, there have been breakthroughs elsewhere, like the recent US-UK deal to lower car tariffs from 25% to 10% on capped volume of exports. As the dust settles on Geneva's talks, the world watches closely to see whether US-China trade talks are truly headed for a reset or just another round of brinkmanship.
So in West Asia, Hamas says Eden Alexander, the last living American hostage in Gaza, in fact, will be released as part of efforts to establish a ceasefire, reopen crossings into the Israeli blockaded territory, and resume the delivery of aid back into the enclave. The Hamas statement Sunday night does not, however, say when the release will happen. The announcement comes shortly before US President Donald Trump visits the Middle East this week. Now, Trump is not planning to visit Israel, interestingly. Alexander is an Israeli-American soldier who grew up in the United States. He was abducted from his base during the October 7, 2023 Hamas-led terror attack that ignited, in fact, the war in Gaza. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Turkey this week in what could mark a turning point very well for the ongoing war. Now, Zelensky's announcement that he will be waiting for Putin personally came a day after European leaders, in fact, gathered in Kiev to pressure Moscow to accept an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. Now, listen to what the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, in this case, said.
President Putin is open for peace negotiations without any preconditions. We thought that President Trump was going to use his enormous influence over Ukraine to get Ukraine closer to the idea of negotiations. Ukraine is trying to escape from negotiations.
While you saw that, here's a special report, in fact, on how things currently stand between Moscow and Kiev ahead of the purported May 15 meet. Take a look.
Війну Росії все одно доведеться закінчувати. Вбивства повинні закінчити. Українські сили готові будуть реагувати дзеркально щоб це було чесно. Ми неодноразово чули від партнерів, що вони готові посилювати санкції проти Росії.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has publicly challenged Russian President Vladimir Putin to meet him in person for peace talks in Istanbul. The bold invitation came just hours after US President Donald Trump urged Ukraine to accept Putin's offer of direct negotiations. Zelensky has repeatedly said Ukraine is open to talks, but only after a ceasefire is in place. Western leaders are rallying behind a 30-day ceasefire proposal set to begin today. Over the weekend, the coalition of the willing, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany and Poland, met in Kiev to push for an end to the fighting. Their message to Putin was firm: agree to an unconditional ceasefire in the air, at sea and on land, or face fresh sanctions targeting Russia's energy and banking sectors. Both Putin and Zelensky have made put their points.
Добрый вечер, уже, наверное, доброй ночи. Всех хочу поприветствовать. Что мы видим? Каковы эти результаты? Киевские власти, вы, собственно говоря, сами это все видите прекрасно.
Я буду в цей четвер, 15 травня, в Туреччині. І очікую на Путіна в Туреччині. Особисто. І сподіваюся, що Путін цього разу не шукатиме причин, чому він щось не може. Ми готові говорити, щоб закінчити війну.
The Russian leader suggested talks could lead to a new truce, framing it as a step towards long-term peace, though skeptics see it as a stalling tactic. It has been more than 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Moscow insists the West must stop arming Ukraine before it considers a ceasefire. Kiev demands a halt to hostilities as a precondition for diplomacy. For now, the world watches whether Thursday's proposed meeting in Istanbul marks the start of real negotiations or just another diplomatic standoff remains to be seen. With Rhythm Arcadia, this is NDTV World.
US President Donald Trump heads for Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE on Monday, eyeing big business deals. In fact, the White House has said he looked forward to a historic return, quote-unquote, to the region. Israel's wars against Gaza terror groups and Iran's nuclear program will also loom large over Trump's first major foreign trip in his second term. That's correct. 8 years ago, for prospective viewers, Trump also chose Riyadh for his first overseas trip as the US president. This time we slip into a short break. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report. Free flights and cash bonuses. Let's take you inside Trump's new plan for migrants who self-deport from the US. Now, titled Project Homecoming, the new program will end up saving taxpayers, quote-unquote, billions and billions of dollars. At least that's what Donald Trump is claiming. Meanwhile, this report brings you all the details and more. Listen in.
US President Donald Trump has come up with a new policy in his quest to free America of illegal immigrants. Trump ordered the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to recruit at least 20,000 officers who can ensure the smooth enforcement of his new self-deportation policy, dubbed as Project Homecoming. Trump recently shared a video on Truth Social announcing the latest update in his visa policy. The Trump government launched the first ever self-deportation program that allows illegal immigrants to exit the country via the CBP Home app.
Today I signed an executive order to launch the first ever self-deportation program for illegal aliens. We are making it as easy as possible for illegal aliens to leave America. Any illegal alien can simply show up at an airport and receive a free flight out of our country.
The self-deportation program offers free flights for illegal immigrants to any foreign country to ensure their exit from the U.S. It also incentives self-deportation through a $1,000 exit bonus. Trump claims that with the deportation bonus, the U.S. will save American taxpayers billions. Trump threatened harsh punishments for those who don't self-deport, including legal repercussions, prison sentences, large fines, asset seizures, and wage garnishment. Trump also condemned former President Biden's term for his lax policy on illegal immigrants. Biden had launched the CBP One app to help individuals seeking asylum or entering the U.S. through certain channels to schedule appointments at ports of entry. Yet under Trump, the app has been weaponized to target illegal immigrants. Trump also revoked visas of international students and workers, including those under F1 and H-1B visas, due to student support for pro-Palestinian protests. Trump has made it clear there's no negotiating with illegal immigrants. For him, it is America first and only for Americans. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
And across the border of US, the Liberal Party in Canada has in fact inched another seat closer to a majority government. Now this comes after a judicial recount left their candidate as the winner in the Quebec riding of Tariff by a margin of just one vote. Liberal Tatiana Auguste will finish ahead of incumbent Bloc Québécois candidate Nathalie Sinclair Desaulniers. It brings the Liberals to 170 seats in the House of Commons, to just too shy of the 172 mark needed for a majority government. The Bloc seat count falls to 22 after this loss. In the land down under, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced his new cabinet after a dumped former minister Ed Husic blamed his own criticism of Israel's campaign in Gaza in part for his demotion. Albanese named the 30 lawmakers who will fill cabinet and outer ministry positions. This after his centre-left Labour Party won a landslide victory at elections on the 3rd of May. Here's more.
Last Saturday, the Australian people voted for Labor and for Labor to keep building Australia's future. And that is certainly what we intend to do in this, our second term. We'll continue working hard, day and night, for all Australians. We have the largest ALP caucus in history since Federation. A caucus brimming with capacity, talent and energy in both the House of Representatives and the Senate.
South Korea's former President Yoon Suk-yeol arrived for the third hearing of his criminal trial via the court's open entrance for the first time, mind you, on Monday in Seoul. Yoon was ousted in April 4 after he declared martial law in December 2024. He was allowed to use the underground parking lot entrance for the previous two hearings, but the court had recently denied the presidential security's request to use the underground route for this third important hearing. Yoon arrived in a black van and walked up to the entrance as people held signs and chanted. He also encountered the court without answering journalists' questions. Over the Vatican, Italian authorities estimated some 100,000 people were in fact in the St. Peter's Square on Sunday as the newly elected pontiff delivered his first Sunday noon blessing. It was in fact the first time that Leo had returned to the loggia since he first appeared to the world on Thursday evening following his election as Pope, the first from the United States. Leo was picking up the papal tradition of offering a Sunday blessing at noon, but with some twists. Whereas his predecessors delivered the greeting from the studio window of the Apostolic Palace off to the side of the piazza, Leo went to the very center, in fact, of the square and the heart of the church. In some business news now, Asian stock markets surged on Monday, driven by positive signals from US-China trade discussions. Key indices like China's CSI 300, Hong Kong's Hang Seng, and Japan's Nikkei experienced significant gains. In India, the BSE Sensex rose by 2,190 points, or 2.76%, taking the overall value to 81,644.56. The Nifty, meanwhile, index jumped to 24,710.05, thanks to the rise of 702.05 base points or 2.92%. According to its prospectus filed on Monday, Chinese battery manufacturer CATL aims to raise at least $3.99 billion in Hong Kong listing, the largest listing globally so far in 2025. Now, according to filings launched with the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the electric vehicle battery maker is selling 117.9 million shares. Japanese technology investor SoftBank Group is expected to book a quarterly net loss of $184.4 million on Tuesday as early-stage tech startups fell out of favor and losses widened nonetheless major portfolio firms. Now, the forecast downgrades are seen by analysts as being partially offset by a stronger yen and the continued rise also in the share price of SoftBank's telecommunications holdings. Now, these include T-Mobile, which finished the quarter up by more than 20%, close to, in fact, a record high, they say. That's all we have for you on this Monday. Take care and have a lovely day.